The merits and demerits of those, again, will be the subject of a debate on another day. But if I just give an example, it means that now if there are going to be targets set in that program, those are the ones that can be validly determined as Kenya Kwanza targets. Because some of the negotiated aspects, whether it was the tax, the debt ceilings, and so forth, were negotiated in the context of the previous program, which is now come to an end, and therefore we now have to engage afresh. And this may also call for some realignment as we go along with our development partners in some of the sectors that you are involved in. And I'm sure there's usually an opportunity, even within the framework of these negotiations, for consultations with the bilateral partners that are involved with various programs. So this may call for some realignment. We may have an opportunity during this period to look at projects where resources were earmarked, but maybe there was no drawdown, or we were unable there was no perhaps capacity to actually commit the resources and utilize them. Equally, maybe there were events where counterpart funding from the government of Kenya was not readily available, so certain programs may have stalled. So this will give us an opportunity to start looking at that properly. But I want to underscore that we all know that it is important to have a program so that we can move along together. So that is something that I can just highlight around the economic area. The other thing that I may want to put on the table for Kenya is that we are on course in establishing the IEBC. This is extremely important in my view. And we are doing it in good time so that the electoral body can be in place for the election of 2027. And I would like to invite you to recollect that what is going on is a process that was negotiated under the NADCO framework. And after a protracted legal battle, the courts set aside that process to allow the IEBC to be constituted. But Kenyans being what they are, it becomes an Oliver Twist kind of situation. I've got it, but I still want more. So all I want to tell you is that we are on track. There'll be people still saying that we are not getting a fair deal or this should not happen. But rest assured, and some may even want to go to court again. And we need to know some of these could be genuine concerns, but equally, we must also appreciate that there are those who would always want to create an obstacle to delay a process. This process we can't afford to delay it again as Kenyans, and we would like your understanding on this, so that when you see the debates in the media, when you see people talking about it, I think what is important is let us keep our eye on the ball, let us have the IEBC constituted, let the IEBC now start its preparatory work for the 2027 elections so that we are not caught on the wrong foot. So as you listen to them, please bear in mind that it is our resolve that the IEBC is constituted and it's put in place to prepare the country for proper democratic processes. We in Kenya have always had our elections in the cycle that it's supposed to be, every 5 years, without fail, since we got independence. And we have no reason to set ourselves up for failure in 2027. I think I thought that might be very, very useful as two key aspects for this interaction with us. Let me also point out that a critical area is also the DRC now, if I may move away from the Kenyan landscape. And just to state that, as you are all aware, there's been the conversation that has merged the process. The EAC SADC process is now unified. This process has been briefed also to the AU. In the briefing in Addis, it was also done in the presence of the Secretary General of the United Nations at the Peace and Security Council in Addis. And indeed, even the Secretary General gave a statement to the Peace and Security Council. Subsequently, the position was also adopted by the Heads of State Summit in Addis. So the EAC SADC process has attained recognition both within the African Union. The report is also within the UN framework. And the President of Kenya as chair of EAC and the President of Zimbabwe as chair of the SADC summit have been having a conversation. We were in Zimbabwe after the first meeting of 8th of February in Dar es Salaam. We were in Harare, and we made some recommendations. And recently, in a summit, virtual summit, President Obasanjo, President Uhuru Kenyatta, President Saleh Wake, and President Catherine Samba, and indeed there was also President Motlanthe from South Africa, who are nominated to be the 5 facilitators of this dialogue, the EAC SADC dialogue. We subsequently got communication that His Excellency from South Africa, Motlanthe, was engaged elsewhere and he may not be able to take up the assignment. And I think consultations with SADC and the EAC, but more within SADC, the message we are getting is that I think they'll be settling on President Masisi of Botswana, and then that will be complete. I just want to highlight that I bring this forward to you because the merging was to make sure that we eliminate forum shopping so that we can have one unified process. Therefore, my appeal to you this morning is that as you talk to your capitals, let us encourage the channeling of all the support that may be necessary through to this one singular process so that we avoid duplication. Whether we want to say the Luanda process succeeded or the Nairobi process didn't succeed or vice versa, or Nairobi succeeded, this one didn't. That can be a debate in the boardrooms, but I think what we need to figure out is that time is of essence, and this peace process must move forward. From the 8th of February, when the first decision was made, now we have the facilitators in place. What is important is to get the facilitators working, because definitely that is now almost 2 months. So we need to find a way of eliminating protracted bureaucracies within the two economic regional blocks, the EAC and the SADC, and all other areas. And in this conversation, the briefing that was held recently by the President, the AU was also in attendance. They were represented by the Peace and Security Council Commissioner, Bankole. So we need to hasten because the situation is not improving until we really get everybody on the table. There have been initiatives that have been reported where Qatar has also invited I don't know whether to call them warring factions in DRC to meetings. But what is important, that they have also come out recognizing the need to support the EAC SADC initiative. From the Kenyan perspective, President Ruto has offered, if need be, the final decision will lie with the facilitators, but President Ruto has offered to provide facilities to house any meetings that they would want to have, and where it may be necessary is perhaps for our partners to think on what logistical support they can lend to this initiative as we go forward. If the facilitators think otherwise, Kenya is still flexible. What is important is to have the process moving forward. And I would want to appeal for your support in helping us deal with this. We had a visit also from the special advisor from the Trump office government, Dr. Masad Bulos. We talked about many things, bilateral, but on this regional aspect, I just want to state that they were in consonance as well, that it's important that we have one unified process that can help us to achieve peace and stability in the DRC. Now let me also clarify a couple of things in the region. We have a new challenge in South Sudan. It has been there before, but it's a challenge that we now must also put a spotlight on. The situation remains, as you know it. I think one of the vice president has been held in a manner that refrains him from undertaking certain activities. And we, as Kenya, sent a special envoy, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. He was accepted there, but he was not allowed to see Riek Machar to maybe hear a version from his end. We were destined as ministers of foreign affairs earlier to also go there to have a conversation as IGAD ministers, but the government of South Sudan at the 11th hour sent a message that they were not ready to receive the ministers, so that session was deferred for a later date. Clearly, there was also another delegation sent by the AU, and all the courtesies were accorded, but just like with the Raila situation, that AU delegation, panel of the wise, was not allowed to see Riek Machar either. So that remains a gray area that may require a lot of diplomatic effort, even from behind the scenes, to have conversations with different interlocutors so that we can mitigate the situation in South Sudan. The president was launched the Shirika plan formally at State House a few days. This is the whole package of trying to integrate refugees. It has become a flagship of the UNHCR program, and Kenya has been leading it. So he launched it. But some of the indications as he was launching this is that because of the heightened tension in South Sudan, we are beginning to see an inflow of about 20 or so new refugees trooping into Kakuma on a daily basis. So that, if we don't stem it, could mean the numbers could swell again in that region. So there's every reason to look at it, and also bearing in mind that the pressures that are now evident globally, whether it is support through the WFP or UNHCR in different areas in terms of support to the refugees, with the geopolitics that is taking place, I think clear and decisive intervention will be necessary, because the resources may not be readily available to deal with some of the challenges there. On Sudan, let me state very clearly that there was the conference that took place here in Nairobi. I think they call it the Taasisi meeting, Taasisi or Charter meeting. And for the avoidance of doubt, no government of Sudan was declared or formed in Kenya, in Nairobi. I want that to be understood very clearly, because there has been some misinformation that a parallel government of Sudan has been formed in Kenya. That is not true. And we have had a chance to look at their documentation. There is no such wording of a government being formed in Kenya. And I'm sure some of you may also have had access to the charter that was signed by the Sudanese parties in Nairobi. Please scrutinize it, because there is no such decision. And it's important we clarify this. And I think we need to distinguish sometimes terminology of self-determination. Sometimes self-determination can be seen as fighting for independence and whatever, but in a number of constitutions in the region, the terminology self-determination appears in a number of clauses. I think if you look at the South African Constitution and others, you'll come across this terminology. So in this case, the principle of self-determination should not be misconstrued as if Kenya is facilitating a separatist state. We stand for a peaceful Sudan, unified Sudan, one Sudan, and it is important that they get together. Our issue as a country is that we believe in mediation, and there will be different countries from time to time that may have challenges, and Kenya will not shy away from offering an opportunity for peaceful conversations, as we have done in the past for Angola, as we are doing for South Sudan, as we have done for Somalia. We shall continue to encourage that kind of conversation, but we shall not form governments in exile in Nairobi for other countries. Those must be determined by the people themselves. And the debate for Sudan is that it should not be a dialogue of the generals alone. What about the civil society? What about the political parties? What about the other organizations and individuals of Sudan? At what forum will they be put to also have a conversation about their own country? So it is on this principle that the issue of Sudan came in, but I hope I hope by this comment we set the record straight, and any misunderstanding around that space should perhaps dissipate. Of course, we know they say Kenyan tea should not go there, but that's a trade issue. But on the part of Kenya, we want to state that in spite of all these challenges, a lot of the humanitarian efforts that take place in Sudan, in terms of logistics, in terms of supplies, in terms of, will continue. And Kenya shall not in any way interfere with that process. So we are putting our case in good faith, and we shall not interfere. So whatever activities that are humanitarian, that are also in support of the people of Sudan, where there's a serious humanitarian crisis, Kenya will continue to play its role in the international arena to support those efforts. Let me touch briefly on Haiti. We lost 2 of our personnel to the violence in Haiti. It's most unfortunate, but we are still committed, working within the framework of the UN resolutions to continue with this support. Of course, the term of the mission should end in September this year. But in between, there are some petitions that are within the UN framework, and I think the Secretary General of the UN made some comments to it. So we await some reactions so that we can collectively understand how the international community is looking at the Haiti agenda, and hopefully on how we can work together to be able to deal with it. We also urge that we continue our efforts to support Somalia collectively. I think it's very important. In the African proverbs, they always say that the most dangerous moment and tragic moment is when the pot of water breaks at the doorstep. Somalia has been walking a journey, and we should not allow a situation where the pot breaks at the doorstep. So the efforts that we've been putting in, let's put in, because we have seen some resurgence of the terrorist element, and we all know of the incidents that took place not too long ago. So let's have collective support to be able to support the challenges there. We have had visits which you will take note of from my remarks. We had the King of Lesotho, he was in Kenya. We had the Majesty's King and Queen of the Netherlands recently. As I said, we have also had the visit from the Special Advisor of the United States of America, Dr. Masad Bulos. We recently had a visit from, I think until last night, from the Defense Secretary from the United Kingdom. We also have some outbound trips. The President was in Namibia to attend the swearing-in ceremony of the new head of state, Madam Nandi, the first female president in Namibia. I was there, and I saw firsthand how a general becomes the first husband. Quite an interesting event there. But so that is how the world is becoming. Let me say that the President of Kenya is also scheduled to make a state visit to China in the course of this month. And apart from that, there are meetings for COMESA lined up. The President will also be, there's the TICAD meetings in Japan, which he will also be attending. There could be others that would come in between. Sometimes you cannot really program all of them. Sometimes some come in as a would I say emergency kind of visit. Let me also say that we are aware of the issues around the challenges of the ETA. There are still challenges in that space. And my PS continues to talk, especially with the immigration department, so that whatever is still giving us a problem, we can help in refining that space, because indeed we've had representations of inconveniences from quite a number of our friends and partners in this space. We are also reviewing the Powers and Privileges Act as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because over the years things have changed, and we are looking at that act so that we can make it fit for purpose in the current circumstances. If you do have any suggestion, if the PS has not invited you for any contribution, or if he has not solicited any contribution, let me do it once again on the behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If indeed you have some way that you think we can improve the Powers and Privileges Act, please send us a short memo specifically highlighting the area that you think needs some consideration. That is public participation. So please, we are ready to receive some comments, some advice, some case study, some examples. I think it will help us so that we smoothen that space. We have completed the sessional paper, Kenya's foreign policy sessional paper. Remember, we started a journey. We had a policy evolve. That policy was approved by cabinet. It was then converted to a sessional paper, which was approved by cabinet. The sessional paper is in Parliament, and last week, after public participation, the processes, the relevant department for defense, security, and international affairs is now doing its final report, and then the sessional paper will now be formally on the floor of the House for the second reading, which is the debating portion. And we trust that there's been a lot of consultation, and this will be a moment for us to be able to say that Kenya's foreign policy, the fundamentals of it, are now available for everybody to understand, to know, and to know Kenya's position on various critical issues. I think I have done well. If I may give myself some self-assessment, but in the process there'll also be some conversations around there's our envoy on matters technology, Mr. Thigo, and others. I would maybe when we're interacting, I would want him to have a minute or so just to talk about that space, and especially bearing in mind that we just came from the Global Artificial Intelligence Summit in Kigali. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. And please enjoy your coffee as we have a few minutes, and that I will leave to the PS to moderate. Thank you so much.
I became momentarily the platform.